Hey, what's up? This is Elijah. Welcome to Glenn's How I See It. Appreciate you tuning in. We got a special guest today, and you're gonna really love his energy. My homie, we used to teach back in the day together. Believe it or not, we were two of the best math teachers in the Metroplex. I reached out to him, and he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna do. It. I'm down." And I really appreciate that. He's a husband, a father, a pastor, and many other things that he's going to talk about here today on the podcast. So please welcome Mr. Dimitri Norwood.
What's going on, everybody? Honored to be here, Glenn. Thank you so much for having me, bro.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm gonna get the title as being one of the best teachers in the Metroplex, it's only because I learned a long time ago it's okay to be a copycat, as long as you copy the right cat. So I will copy. So,
That's what's up.
so
That's
I'm
what's
hanging
up.
on to your coattails. So.
That's what's up. I appreciate that, man. Thanks for stopping by for sure.
Yes,
So
sir.
we're gonna dive right off into it. Kind of tell us who is Norwood.
Oh man, I try to be one constant thing. I find myself being multiple things. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own roofing, commercial and residential roofing company. Been doing that for right at about 14 years now. Never thought in a million years I'd be on a roof for a living. I have 2 degrees, one in accounting and one in finance. Did corporate America. Lost my job on a Wednesday. Had a stay-at-home wife and a newborn baby boy. My mama taught me how to work and dream. And that Thursday morning, I was on a roof, afraid of heights because I knew a guy who owned a roofing company and I needed a job. The company car wasn't there. The company expense account wasn't there, but the house and all the bills and stuff were. So
Wow.
I knew I had
Yeah.
to work. And this is when we were living in Louisville, Kentucky. And so I used to drive from Kentucky after church on Sundays down to Atlanta, work Monday through Friday afternoon, come back Friday night, spend Saturday, half the day with my family on Sunday, then do it all over again.
Wow.
And we had a storm hit Louisville. I grabbed a crew that had just quit the company and had them put a roof on my house. Saw how much money the guy I was working for made.
Wow.
My neighbor across the street saw me do it. He asked me to put one on his house, so grabbed a crew, put it on his house. I told him he owned the largest landscaping company in Louisville, so he's in the houses every single day.
What?
So I told him, I said, man, I'll give you $100 a referral if you refer our company out. And in 2 weeks, we had 21 roofs, and I had a company. And so,
What?
yeah, that's how we got
That's
started.
amazing.
Yeah, and so,
So your failure became more than what you thought it
yes,
was
sir.
going to. Getting
Yeah,
fired. Yeah.
yeah, it ignited so much in me that I didn't know I had, and that I didn't really know I wanted. I just knew I hated going to work, um, aiding to someone else's dream coming true, but I didn't know
Yeah.
how to flip the role. So when I started roofing, man, all this stuff that I didn't know I had in me started surfacing. And so we had the company there in Louisville for a couple of years. I sold it. We shut that office down. Well, we moved back home in March of 2010. And my oldest baby was 3, and my youngest baby was like a year and a half or so, maybe 2. And came back home, and I remember very vividly days where I'd have my oldest son on one side of the street. Matter of fact, it was over in Euless. I had my oldest baby on one side of the street. My wife was pushing the stroller on the other side of the street, and we're just knocking on doors.
What?
Yeah. For many years, we probably did that for the first 3 or 4 years of moving back home, and we would just knock on doors. I print out these little. It's so cheesy now that I think about it, but they work. These little flyers, man, and our slogan is. At the time, it was a JDN roofing for Jennifer Dimitri Norwood roofing. And our slogan was, your roofer, your neighbor. And so, because whenever a lot of storms would come, people from all over the nation would come into Texas. And
Okay. You broke up. You may have to drop off. All right. So we have technical difficulties. Hopefully, we'll be able to get Norwood back on here in just a few. Uh, so just stay tuned with us. Uh, One of the things that's cool about Norwood is that when we were teaching together, I think it was his first year of teaching math. He was always willing to learn, though. So I thought that was pretty cool. So he's back. Here we go.
Sorry about that.
No problem, man.
Um, okay, so a lot of roofers, but anyway, that would we were knocking on doors for the first few years or so, and then but I'd say we've been back home for 10 years this past March, and I'd say about the last 6-7 years solid, we've been like 100% referral. We hadn't knocked on the door, we hadn't done any marketing, we hadn't solicited any business. It's all been by word of mouth.
Wow.
And so
yeah,
that's why God has really been faithful, man. But a lot of people are like, well, how do you do it? How did that happen to you? What did you do differently? I mean, I tell people, we operate in God's financial economy. We put him first, we give, learn very quickly. There are 3 levels of givers. There's a person who gives tithes, which is great, a person who gives offering and tithes, which is also great, but also a 3rd level of giving is one who gives extravagantly. When you give extravagantly, you receive extravagantly. Is it always in money? No. In our case, it came as referrals. It came as never begging for bread.
That's what it says, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Never beg for bread. Yeah.
And so I learned God's favor. So that's one area. As far as the pastoral part goes, I was called to preach when I was 15 years old, but I saw too much behind the scenes. I was my pastor's armor bearer, so I saw way too much, at a very young age behind the scenes. So I just told God, it's like, hey, I'll serve you, but this whole pastoral part, you can keep that to yourself or find somebody else.
Right.
So I literally, bro, I ran from God on purpose, very deliberately for 23 years. And about 4 years ago, I found myself in a round room trying to find a corner, which there was none to be found. And God was like, you ready? And I was like, I guess, So, and crazy part about it is like the next year following, we had this guy come in and he prophesied over me. And he said, you're this church's Joshua. And he said, your father-in-law has brought you guys to a certain point, but God is going to use you to take the church into the promised land. He said, he's got you like an arrow in a bow. So he's pulling you back, which means you're going to have to go through some things. But when he lets it go, you're going to accelerate. The ministry is going to accelerate. And so in the last probably 2.5 years, so the year I told God yes, I literally went from just saying, okay, from being obedient, to 3 months later, I ended up having to become a youth pastor. The next year, I was an associate pastor. The next year, I was a lead pastor. The next year, I'm senior pastor. And so, and it's just, I'm telling you, like, it just started happening like immediately. So it's been a constant roller coaster, bro. I'm kind of mind blown by God, and I'm hanging on by his coattail.
That's what's up, man. But you're remaining humble, which is cool. Which is what I've always seen in you, and seen when we would. When we was off camera, I was telling the people that like I think your first year of teaching was like my 3rd year or something like that.
Okay.
Because we came on together.
Right.
When we was at the school, at the middle school, and I remember that you were always asking questions, because you wanted to understand how to teach this particular concept of math or something, which is is humility to ask a question that you don't know, especially as a grown man. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't want to ask questions.
Yeah, I think that came from my athletic background. I played college football, played arena football for a few years before I tore up my knee, and so I live by the acronym FAT. Okay, FAT. Stay
Okay.
faithful, stay available, stay teachable. And
Okay. That's
so that's
good.
my life's acronym. And so
Okay.
yeah, I've never known a broke person who who um who asked a lot of questions and their situation didn't turn around. So it's always
Oh,
prideful, you know, when you can't be broke and full of pride at the same time. That's a bad
that's it.
combination.
That is a bad combination. Wow.
So I
Wow.
learned, man, and it's not always about money. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
it's wisdom. It's stuff that I can pass on to my kids. It's hurdles that my kids won't have to go through, and hurdles that I can avoid simply by
Yeah,
asking questions or just sitting back and shutting up and watching. You know,
that's true.
and
That's a
so
very good point. Yeah. That's
yeah.
a very good point, man. So do you feel like uh you gain that type of effort as far as like moving in your business, I guess,
Mhm.
from in your being an athlete, or do you feel like it started like even before then, being in your house? Was it like mom, dad?
No, dad.
No.
I'm a stereotypical black kid, bro.
Okay.
Grew up in a project, single family home, no dad, welfare, food stamps,
Mm,
very, very much the stereotype.
mm,
Um, but my mom, again, taught me two very important things. She taught me how to work hard and she taught me how to dream. And so
okay.
I remember very significantly or very vividly the days when my mom would work 3, 4, 5 jobs just to send my brother and I to summer camp. And when we got there, we'd be the only two black kids there. And
Mm,
because we were hood kids, we ran in our socks, we played in our socks, we did everything in our socks. So my socks were like crazy holish, right? They were very holy. And so when I would get to camp, these other white kids would make fun of me because my socks were holy and dingy. So what I found myself doing the last couple of days of camp is that I'd wake up earlier, I'd stay up late, and I'd steal all their socks. And
what?
so, and I used to steal the socks like with the gray toe and the gray heel because I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
y'all rich. So these two-tone
yeah.
socks, they mine.
I know that's funny. Yeah,
Yeah. And
that's
so
not
to
funny,
this,
but that is funny. We thought two tone was
yeah, two-tone, man. That's
two tone.
y'all got money. So,
That's
so to
crazy.
this day, man, well, up until about 5 years ago, my wife started just like, okay, enough is enough. I would have over 1,000 pair of socks, just because I'm like, anytime I wear two or three pair, 2 or 3 times, I go get a new pack, and like I was
Wow.
just getting obsessed with socks. But again, my mom taught us how to work hard and dream. So I knew I wanted something for my kids. I knew I wanted something for my wife. This is a funny story, man. When my wife and I first got married, it was right when I came out of playing football. And so we're just looking at houses going through this neighborhood, man. And I pulled up to this house, and I've never been, I'm not 6'5", 245, cut and chiseled, but back in my
Right.
playing days, my chest was up. It wasn't down in my stomach. It was where it was supposed to be, right? My neck
Yeah.
was thicker. My arms were bigger. I
Yeah.
looked like,
Like
an
a
athlete.
football
And
player.
so we go to this house, bro. And this guy's like, oh, you must be an athlete and you must play professionally. And I knew he was talking about the NFL. I just said, yes, sir. And he
Wow.
goes, well, what can I show you guys today? Are you looking for something? And I'm like, well, my wife is like, oh my goodness, we can't afford any of this. Well, she was my girlfriend at the time. And I'm like, girl, just dream. Who care about the money? If he want to assume I play for the Cowboys, and see, the coach that recruited me out of high school is the recruiting coach for Dallas. So
Wow.
when I go see him, I would see a lot of the guys. And this was, like in the early 2000s, I say 2002, 2003. And
Yeah.
so when he asked, hey, how's so-and-so? I'm like, oh yeah, I just saw him in the training room. He's good, so he would automatically, so I'm not lying. I'm just answering the question. And
Wow.
so we're going through this house, bro. This house costs probably $6 or $7 million. And I'm like, because
Wow.
I'm a dreamer, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna pick this out. I see how I want that. I see how I want this. And when I get my house, I can just duplicate that in my house. It ain't gonna be no $6 million house, but
Yeah.
all these things in this house that I like. And so
Yeah.
he was like, well, what color paint? I'm like, yeah, can you change this to that? And I think I want this here and move that there. No, I'm just like dreaming. But to this day, my wife is like, she dream up everything. Before I got my truck, I got a new truck last year. I test drove that truck for 4 years. So I'm like,
you test drove it for 4 years?
Yeah, my F-350 dually. Now,
Wow.
but I test drove it for 4 years, and people were like, "Man, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just going by the Ford dealership right quick. I'm gonna test drive my dream truck." And so I test drove it for 4 years, and so when I finally was like, "Okay, I'm finna go get it," and I went and picked it up, like that. There, the guy was like, "Well, it's got this." I'm like, "Sir, I don't mean to be rude, but I know more about this truck than you'll ever know." I said, "Let's just go sign the paperwork." And so, that's, because I understand God's favor. So it's like, my kids never have to ask me to go open the refrigerator because I'm their daddy. Well, when God becomes your daddy, then you act like a child. And it's like, well, that's mine too. So I'm going to make sure my room is clean, the dishes are washed. I'm going to make sure I do what I do.
Okay.
So when I go ask daddy for something, it's like, okay, baby, here you go. You've been good here. You've been a good steward there. You've been doing this right. You've been doing that right. Yeah, let's go get you a new truck. Let's go get you a new house. Let's go get you a this or that. And so that's just kind of how I operate. I know I went all around the world with that.
No, that's cool. So how do you with that, as you've been a dreamer, how do you teach that to your current? Not current, but like, how do you teach that to your kids?
I make them dream. So
make them dream.
I make them dream. So I put them in situations to where they have to think outside the box. And so, for instance, like my oldest boy, he's got it down. I mean, down pat. He's very entrepreneur minded. Like, he came up. He's very. He's written 4 or 5 business plans. I've never taught him how. I've never done anything. He's just tagged along with me when I close deals. I used to always try to have my kids with me when I close, especially the big deals, so they can see how the communication goes back and forth. They can see how a deal is negotiated. They can see people sign on the dotted line, and they see, okay, this signature means now we can do this or we can do that. And so, I'm a big outdoorsman. I love to hunt and fish, and we've got a ranch up north, and so we'll climb on top of the camper, or we'll take the players out into the middle of a pasture, and there'll be nothing but shooting stars, and we'll lay out on the ground, and I'll just ask them, what do you see? What do you want? Do you really believe God? And I said, not because we taught you, but because you really, really believe. And at a young age, it was always, we believe. Yeah, I mean, this is automatic, right? They were taught. But now, as my oldest son, he's 13, and even my baby boy, he's 11. They're asking questions about God. Well, is he really real? And I was like, okay, well, you remember that time we went back we were out in the pasture, and we said about, we talked about this, we talked about that, we dreamed about this, we dreamed about that.
Yeah.
That wasn't just something that we were doing. That's so you can understand that. That's so you can recall the things that we've asked for, and we can look back and see some of the things that we've asked for. They're here now.
That's crazy.
So even though you're doubting God, because even as a pastor, I'm like, God, where are you? I don't feel you. I don't hear you. I don't see you. I'm in your word. I don't like the people, not that I don't like them, but I'm struggling here. I'm struggling there. You know what I mean?
You're having to deal with people. That's hard.
Yeah, man. So I'm like, God, hold up now. Listen, this is why I was running in the first place. But we can take these situations and remember his promises. So it's I'll never leave you nor forsake you. Okay, God. I know when you start something, a good thing, you're gonna finish it. Okay, I'm with you. Okay. Forgive me for my unbelief, but help me, through it at the same time. And so that's how I instill that stuff into my kids, and I just try to be everything to them that I never had. I think that's probably my biggest motivation. I didn't have a dad. Say it. Go ahead.
I'm just saying I'm just listening. I'm saying that sounds exactly what my motivation is.
Yeah.
Is to be the dad that I didn't have.
Yeah. Yeah. That #1 dad t-shirt, I want to be able to wear it not just because I'm a dad, but because I've earned it, right?
Mm.
To my kids at least, now they'll still tell me, "Golly, Dad, you gained so much weight. Now you don't play with us no more. Why are you so fat?" I'm like, hold up. We can still go at it right now. Don't let the
don't let the tummy fool you, bro.
Listen, don't let the age fool you. But no, they're good boys, and they are my motivation, man. They're big time dreamers, and even when I don't think they're paying attention, they pay attention to Daddy because they're watching me. So
for sure, man. That's when, like, you talking about dads. I started. I put on my humble dad.
Okay, yeah, I see that, yeah.
And I did that, as a double
I need that, bro.
I'll send it to you. It's on my website.
Yeah, I'm preaching that. Matter of fact, I need that.
Okay, for sure, man. Hopefully, yeah. So
okay, there you go.
You had broke up. Okay, so the reason, first of all, the reason why I even did the shirt or the hoodie is because, you know what I'm saying, it's one of the things that I started my own t-shirt company when I was 19, when I was in college. And so it's been always a thing about doing t-shirts. But anyway, we fast forward to now. I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing a podcast about dad. So I want to kind of connect these things together, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm playing with different words, trying to figure out what can I put with dad.
Right.
And I even asked my wife, and I asked my daughter, who understands a little bit better about these things, and they both like the humble dad shirt, because I had a couple different. However, I'm like, but humble, when I wear humble, it doesn't seem like you're humble.
right. I'm bragging that I'm humble, y'all.
But at the same time, I'm like, the purpose in saying humble dad is that, dads usually play the background as it relates to what the world is going to be talking about. They're going to be usually focusing on the mother, you know what I'm saying? Which is fine, right? But us dads, we cool with not getting no credit. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah, totally cool, yeah.
And so that's what I mean by the humble dad approach. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just being a humble dad. Yeah. And also, I told my pastor, I said, he liked the shirt too. And I was like, well, it is kind of oxymoronic though. He said, well, Moses said that he was the most humble man in the world.
Yeah. Showed up, bro.
I said, wow, that's a good one, Pastor. So yeah, man. So that's why I put it together. But that's cool. But for sure, like, when did you? Let me ask you this question. Do you remember the first time that you held your kid, your son?
Oh my gosh, bro, you gonna make me cry.
Okay, it's fine too. I mean, we need one of those episodes. Right?
Listen, man.
So walk me through that.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna tell you up front, bro. I'm a crier. Okay.
Okay.
People in my church make fun of me all the time because, especially when it comes to my kids, I'll reminisce and I'll cry right in the middle of the sermon. So
yeah,
I'm compose myself.
I can tell you mine first.
Yeah, please. Yeah, that way I can gather my emotions.
For sure. Okay, so it was 2009, and it was the Lakers were in the championship game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big Kobe Bryant fan, and so I had just finished watching the game. I think the night before. My wife Jenny, she wakes up in the middle of the night. I think it may have been like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And she said, my water just broke, and I'm like, oh,
wow.
Okay, water just broke. Okay, well that means game time in a different sense.
Yeah, for sure.
And we lived with somebody at this time that was like 35 minutes away from the hospital.
Okay.
Nacogdoches. I don't know if you're familiar where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay. So we live 35 minutes away. So then we got to get to the hospital. We get there about 6:30 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So she goes in. She's in labor, but she cannot. They cannot get her to 9. I think it was like 8-9 inches. They can't do that. So they're gonna have to do a C-section. And I'm like, man, what is that? Okay, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? This is what's going through my mind, right? So then, I got to put on my gear. I walk in. I'm bugging because I mean, this is very abnormal to me. Like, where
Right,
do I,
right.
am I supposed to stand? Then they pulled Gianna out, and it's like a surreal moment to me, right? I'm like, I'm in the moment of that I wanted, but not knowing how I was going to, like, I didn't prepare my emotion.
Yes, sir.
So then they give her to me first.
Yeah.
They didn't. They let her see. They let mommy see, but she can't hold her or whatever.
Right,
And they
right,
give
right.
it to me, and then I walk into like the hallway, and I'm just holding her, and
Wow.
I'm like, this. I cannot believe my dad would leave me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I know.
That was my initial thought holding my daughter. Like,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
would you want to leave this?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For
So
sure.
that was my first emotion.
Well, when my wife got pregnant, I used to always tell her, say, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant. And so she waited like 3 weeks before she told me she was pregnant. I was in Mississippi when I was doing pharmaceutical sales. I was working in Mississippi. And she said, well, I've known for about 3 weeks. And I'm like, what do you mean you've known for 3 weeks? And so she's like, well, I took a test from the dollar store, and I was like, dollar store test, it ain't gonna mean nothing. And then she's like, I went to CVS, and they were like, well, this is a CVS, thing. It don't mean nothing. And so she called me and took a third one. She came back positive again. She called me. I was on a golf course, and I was flying home that afternoon, and she called and told me she was pregnant, and I just lost it. Like my golf game was just like out the door. I'm like balling on a golf course. I'm playing with these two older gentlemen. I don't even know them. And they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, my wife just said she was pregnant. And so they're high-fiving me and stuff like that. So I got home. We went straight to a pregnancy clinic. Got, like, the lady was like, okay, ma'am, pee in a cup. So we had the cup. And she came in with something. She put it in the cup, and she didn't even get out the door, and the thing had turned like hot pink. And like, yeah, you're pregnant. So come day of delivery, and prior to, I used to talk to Nate all the time. Like, Nate would be like not moving at all during the day. And the moment I got home, I'd say, hey, baby. And I'd be like, what's up, son? Like, immediately in his elbows, everything is just like crazy.
No way.
I would every day, bro, every day. And I would put my hand on her stomach, and I lay my head, not talk to him, and I just speak life over him, bro. And while, I'm gonna see if I can find this picture while I talk about this. But I used to be like, son, you're going to be a mighty man of God. God's going to use you to save the captives and or set the captives free, and to save the lost, and he's just going to use you in a mighty way. And I just just speak all this stuff, and he would just react. It was so crazy. And so the day he was born, bro, I lost it. He came, we were at dinner, and Jennifer kept having all these Braxton Hicks, all these false labor pains. And so we'd always be in and out of the ER. And so we were at the hospital, and she had only dilated to like a 2. And we were there all night, and the doctor was like, yeah, like very, like nothing. And the doctor was like, well, you've been having these contractions for this long and for that long. If there's any change, we're just going to break your water. So I'm like, okay, so I'm over in the corner asleep. She goes, well, I'm getting ready to leave, so let me just check you one more time. And even if there's any, she said, you changed like the size of my pinky. And she was like, okay, we're going to break the water. And I jumped up. I'm like, wait a minute, what was going on? And I'm like freaking out. And so Jennifer, she pushed 3 times and he was here. And so when he came, I cut the umbilical cord, and I'm kind of like you. I'm just like, what is this? I mean, he's like this big, and and what really scared me is that, my wife is white. So my son was like blonde hair, blue eyes.
Oh my God.
I'm looking at my wife. I'm like, hey,
oh wow,
this one don't look like me. I ain't we getting a blood test. Like, I don't know what's up.
Did you say that?
I said that, bro. I was like, this ain't mine. What you do? So she She giving me the side eye, boy, like crazy. I tell people all the time, y'all know her as Jennifer, but she can become Jennifer real quick, like real quick. Don't let the blonde hair and blue eyes fool you. So, but I would speak over my son constantly, man. And when he was born, he used to always say, you know, you're gonna be a pastor, you're gonna preach, you're gonna teach, you're gonna, you know, draw people in. And when he was 2 years old, man, I cannot find this picture. It'll come up here in a second. But when he was 2 years old, I did pharmaceutical sales, and he stood this box up. It was a long box, but he stood it up tall,
Okay.
like a podium. And I came home one day. He was like 2 years old. My youngest baby was just born. I came home one day, and he was like, amen, and amen. That's all I could understand was amen. And he was preaching his first little sermon.
Wow.
I don't know what he was watching on TV. I don't know what was going on.
But awesome.
So that was my first experience. My second one, I was like, yeah, this Joker looked just like me. I can't deny him. He was dark skinned, you know, he good looking kid. But, oh, here he is right here. Okay, so this is my son. Come this way.
That is awesome.
I don't know what he had written, but that was his first little sermon right there. And so
that's cool, man.
Yeah, man. And so here he is right there.
Y'all gotta make that. Y'all gotta make some of that. Y'all gotta make a poster or something.
Yeah, well, you know, they're doing these videos where they're recreating everything.
Okay.
And so Jennifer is like, we need to recreate this and, you know, show how, you know, he did it when he was a kid and where he is now. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah, so I'm blessed, man. Two knuckleheads.
So what did you want to be when you grew up? Like you said, I know before 15, were you thinking about being a pastor?
No. I got saved when I was 13. When I wanted to grow up, you know, I wanted to be a football player. You know, I didn't have any real like occupational, career type motivation. Just kind of living life, you know. So I didn't really have any real aspirations to do anything. I just knew I didn't want to be in the hood. So, but being in the hood or out of the hood don't mean you won't face circumstances like you were or like you would if you were in the hood. You know, when I did pharmaceutical sales, bro, we went from when I lost my job and before our roofing company really got kind of kicked off, we went from like $500,000 a year, company car, company expense account, to nothing.
Really?
We were on food stamps for about 8 or 9 months, and I used to send my wife. I used to be so prideful. I used to send my wife down to the welfare office. I'm like, oh, well, you white. You know, if I go, it's just gonna be another stereotypical black dude. They ain't gonna mess with me. But I'm gonna send you. I was just embarrassed to go because we were on food stamps as a kid. So I'm like, you know, but I finally got to the point where it's like, you know what, man, I paid into the system very well for a very long time. This is my account. This is my savings. So I'm gonna call my uncle. I've been paying into the system. When we were getting like $600 in food stamps a month, boy.
Oh man, that's some good money, bro.
Man, who you telling? We were acting the fool. We were buying food for everybody. We were like the Pied Piper, man. We feeding everybody. So
crazy. That's what's up, man. So what would you say is the happiest moments in your life so far? Three of the happiest moments of your life so far.
My 2 boys and when my wife and I reconciled. We were separated. We almost didn't make it. We were married for 9.5 years. We had a horrible blow up one night at my house involving my mom and her sister, the 4 of us. And I went and stayed at my mom's house that night. The next day I came home to clothes hanger swinging in my kid's closet. And she had left, gone back home to her parents. And
I remember this.
Yeah, bro. It was I lost, I mean, I ain't big as nothing, but I lost 25 pounds in 2 weeks. And we were separated for 10.5 months. She had filed for divorce because her people very close to her influenced her to file for divorce. So when I got served paperwork, boy, my mind was just like gone. So like I started seeing somebody else. She filed for divorce. We're in the middle of this marriage class that we're both loved each other, but we were both just extremely hurt by each other. And I was hurt by her family. She was hurt by my family. And so we go through this class, and when the class is over, the following week they have what's called celebration. It's just, to show that you completed the class and whatnot. So at the end of the class, we were like, hey, thank you, but this didn't work. I'm going to start seeing the person. I'm going to keep seeing the person I've been seeing. She going to file for divorce. So I'm like, whatever. But instead of it being the following week, something happened. I had to push it back a week. And within that 2-week time period, little did I know, and little did she know, but we were both having what I call snotty rug moments, when you just prostrate on the ground and you just crying out to God, and you just find yourself in this puddle of drool and tears and snot,
Wow.
And so within 2 weeks, man, he turned our marriage around. We learned that
you said both of y'all were having these.
Both of us were having these moments.
I didn't know that about
without knowing each other. No, without knowing each other, we're having them. And I'll never forget the day. Within that 2 weeks, she came to me and she said, something's different about you. And I was like, well, don't tell me what it is, because I don't want to mess nothing up. And so 2 weeks we got back together, bro, and we've been on a 5-year honeymoon, 5.5-year honeymoon ever since, man.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So my kids, I dreaded the day of anybody ever kissing my kids good night and good morning again. And I'm like, I eat, and I'm lactose intolerant. I eat whatever cheese I need to eat so I can eat steak later. I eat cheese now so I can eat steak later. And because of that reconciliation, irreconciled relationship with my in-laws, specifically my father-in-law, reconciled relationship with the church. And, it should be my brother-in-law pastoring this church,
Okay.
He helped my father-in-law build the whole thing. And he's a pastor too, but he just started another church. God orchestrated everything for us to be in this church at this time, bro. But without that reconciliation, without that separation, like none of this stuff would happen. So,
man, reconciliation is big.
Yeah, for sure.
Like as far as believers are concerned, I know we talking about dads, but like there are a lot of unreconciled dad moments too. You know what I'm saying? And we talk about reconciliation. I know for me that was a struggle, reconciling to my dad. Like we don't talk like that. But I don't really have an ill will towards him. You know what I'm saying? But I definitely think that you talking about reconciliation is something that I probably need to kind of go talk to him and let him know, where I stand, like, because he may think that I have issues with him in that regard. So that's good, man. But you're talking about a marriage, but I'm talking about reconciliation is a big deal because it also comes back to you being humble.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you got to put pride aside and of course you got to put pride aside that too, but you also coming alongside that is the Holy Spirit, because my ego is like, listen, I was hurt. You got to come fix this.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, why is it that I'm hurt, but you want me to come over there to you?
Right.
You know
yeah.
So,
Lord, I went through that too with my father-in-law. Good Lord. Lord knows I didn't want to seek him for forgiveness, but I didn't feel like I did anything. But you're right. As soon as I, that was a tough night. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
But it sparked the fire to ignite where we are now,
Yeah.
So it's tough. Even with my dad, you said something regarding your dad. I saw my dad for the first time when I was 18 years old. I was graduating high school, and my only intention for wanting to see him was to let him know that I was not like him. I didn't have any kids out of wedlock. Excuse me. I was going to college. I had a full scholarship. I'm better than who you are.
Wow.
And I'm thinking we're getting ready to drive 3 or 4 or 5 hours out of town. We left the church. He was less than 5 minutes from the church we were going to. And I'm thinking that really infuriated me. And I saw him. We looked just alike, played the same position on the football field. Both of us thought we can sing. We are like identical twins, man. And so I didn't see him again. He was in and out of jail. He wrote me a letter. I was out of college. So I may have been around 24, 25. wrote me a letter saying how while he was in jail, he accepted Christ. I'm like, everybody does when they're in jail. And but he kept coming to me with saying stuff like in this letter, like, now that I'm a Christian, and I know you're a Christian, you have to forgive me. And if you don't, then you're not forgiven. I'm like, so that pushed me. Well, I ain't even trying to hear from that joker. So
I understand.
It's the word. But I'm like,
it's hard to hear,
bro. Yeah,
from a person. I'm trying. You want me to listen to you tell me about the word when I got issues with you?
Exactly. And so, but then I found myself a few years later, like, man, I called God the master chess player, bro. He was saying I'd be on a roof. I'll never forget. I did this lady's roof in Arlington, and she just out of the blue, you know, you need to have a relationship with your dad. And I'm like, woman, if you don't leave me alone, like, God knows me talking to her. No. I said, God, you need to leave. You can use somebody I know. I ain't trying to hear this right now. You know
what? You can use somebody I know.
I'm telling God, I'm like, don't be speaking through folks. Leave me alone. I don't want to forgive him. I don't want to have no relationship with him. I don't want nothing. This dude hurt me, and I ain't trying to hear it. And then like 4 or 5 years later, I found myself slowly having mercy and slowly wanting to give grace, but afraid at the same time. So check this out, bro. Golly, this is crazy. I'm sorry to ramble so much, but
no, this is right. This is right, bro.
So one day I found out my dad was homeless, right? So my aunt and I were walking downtown Fort Worth, just kind of looking for him. We went over off of Lancaster, you know, where a lot of homeless people are near the shelters and stuff. We were asking about him. And this lady said, yeah, I know him. He used to be here, but I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks. I'm thinking, okay, he's dead or something. So I'm literally praying, asking God, just let me see my dad. I go home. My aunt goes to my mama's house, and she calls me like 3 or 4 hours later. And she's like, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. She was like, your dad is here at your mama's house. And I'm like, first of all, I'm not going to believe it because I know she ain't letting that joker nowhere near the house. So I'm like, what is going on? Come to find out, he was working on some drywall at a house like 4 or 5 houses down and across the street from my mom. And he was talking to the neighbor back on, on my mom's side of the street. And my mom and the neighbor went to high school together. And of course, my dad went to the same high school. And my dad was like, man, who was that down there you waving at? And my mom's neighbor was like, that's Carmen. He was like, Carmen who? And she said, Carmen. He said, Carmen Norwood. Yeah. And he was like, man, I got a baby by Carmen Norwood. And the neighbor was like, well, it ain't that Carmen Norwood. And so sure enough, it ended up being him. I went there. And it was so surreal because I got out of my truck, I walked around, and he just grabbed me, bro, and just started crying uncontrollably, like, what? And being a crier anyway, and having this void be filled but afraid for it to be flowing.
Wow!
All I could do was I grabbed him and I cried, and he would push away, and he'd grab my face and be like, I love you. Like, this is such an answered prayer to me. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? He's like, I've been praying for years that God would just allow me to see you. You're the last child I ever asked him to let me see before I die. And he just answered my prayers. And I'm just so excited. He's like, and he grabbed his phone, started calling all. He's like, Shamika, I got him. And Pierre, I got him. He's here. I got him. I'm holding. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, these are your brothers and sisters that you have and that you don't know about. And so I had a set of twin sisters in California. One of them has since moved here. She on her feet, got her own house, up and good. One of my younger brothers, Pedadro, he's like 10 years younger than me. Him and I are real close. And so I've got Shamika and Tamika. Tamika's in California, Pedadro, Pierre. A younger sister named Star. A younger sister. Sorry about that. Hold on. Okay, a younger sister named Star and an older brother named. I knew him as Fufu. That's not his real name. And the reason why I knew him is because when I was in middle school, he lived in the apartments next to us, and we used to play together. But my mama didn't let us. No, I never knew. My mama never told me because of the track that he was on. Like literally, like to this day, he's only been out of prison for maybe a year.
Dang.
Or two. And so my mama could see, where he was going. So she kept me away from him. And she never told me that was my brother. And I didn't found out my dad's real name until I just knew him as Dre. And so when I was like a junior in college, I went to go get my birth certificate because I needed a hunting license for the state of New Mexico. And I called my mama. I'm like, who is Marcus? And she was like, what? And I was like, Marcus Davis is on my birth certificate. I was like, who is this? Oh boy, there ain't nobody. Don't worry about it. That must have been the doctor. And I'm like, and she's like, boy, I'm lying. She's like, that was your daddy. I'm like, his name is Marcus. And I was like, she was like, yeah. So my mama crazy. You gotta know her, but
yeah.
So, but since then, like 3 years ago, he had come to church. I took him. This was probably 4 years ago when I saw him. He was coming to church. I was picking him up for church, and I took him to Carrabba's one day after church, and he had never eaten calamari, so he just like going to town with his calamari. I mean, this stuff is good. What is this? I was like, that's squid. He's like, I'm like, man, you done ate 3/4 of the dish. What you talking about? Spitting it out. And so. But we've since lost touch. He's gotten, I think, back in and out of drugs and stuff like that. And I don't know where he is. But 3 years ago, for the very first time my whole entire life, he got me a Christmas gift. And it was nothing much. Emotional. Wow. It was just a little bitty white. It was like I was a kid, Like I was a 5-year-old kid. He got me a little bitty car, just a little metal white car. Wow. And it's downstairs. I've got it. And so, so that's kind of my, your reconciliation with your dad prompted all that.
No, right. That's what we're here for, right? We're talking about dads.
Yeah. And
like, dude, like as I'm emotional too. I just have a hard time crying.
Okay.
So as I'm listening, like I'm trying to find questions to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
Just a part of the interview process,
Okay.
Or just just trying to create dialogue, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm looking at questions like, I've already asked that question before. I don't know if I should ask that question. Well, he's going to come to an end of his statement, so you got to be ready for the next question.
Okay.
And that was the question that I landed on.
What was that?
What is the three? It started
with
3 things.
Yeah.
And the three questions, and then it transitioned to you reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
Then it talked about me reconciling with my dad, which transitioned to you reconciling with your dad. And I'm just saying, I'm like, okay, somebody needs to hear this.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling to figure out which question I need to be asking.
Well, I think if there's anything if there's anything that anybody can take away either from my story or specifically the reconciliation with my dad or even with my wife.
Yeah.
God is a jealous God, bro.
Okay.
And he being jealous wants our everything. He gave his everything. He wants our everything. And I realized that, we give the devil way too much credit. He does not have the ability to create. He does not have the ability to make or have us do anything. His only ability is influence. He can only influence to make a decision, because he can always say, well, I didn't back to the garden. Well, I didn't make her bite that apple. He just influenced her with some questions to make her doubt God. Therefore, she bit the apple.
He had no power or no authority.
None, bro. Absolutely none.
That's good, man.
And because God is a jealous God, he will create some stuff in our lives to make us see him because he's jealous for us. Our separation with my wife and I don't blame it on the devil. I thank God that he set us up, bro. Glenn, let me tell you, man.
Yeah.
We were looking for a house in Meadowbrook. Our lease was getting ready to end on one. We were looking for another. My wife takes our kids to Chick-fil-A every Tuesday night to have like a family night. 2 moms in there, my wife and this lady named Stacy. Somehow they get to talking. Jennifer's like, oh, we live on the east side. Stacy's like, oh, we live on the east side. Jennifer's like, yeah, we're looking for a place to stay. Stacy's like, oh, we're looking for someone to take our house, to rent it out. We move in their house. We're in their house 5 years. Jennifer and I get into that argument. I call her husband, Graham, like, Graham, I want Jennifer off the lease. I don't want to hear. I'm just going to be here by myself. We blew up. Well, before you do that, why don't you go through this program called Re-Engage at my church, Watermark? Because my wife and I just went through something. Re-Engage helped us. So we go through Re-Engage. We meet Graham and Stacy's best friend, Newly and Karen Spikes. Newly's our leader. They just go through something. We go through the class, get reconciled. I reconcile with my family. Now we're pastors here, and now I'm telling you this story. You tell me God ain't the master chess player, bro.
I'm telling you,
You
bro.
telling me. Because of Chick-fil-A, bro, and
Yes.
everybody's in Chick-fil-A this night. And
Yes.
all this happened, it's like, because God knew I was a knucklehead. He had to refine some things in me. He had to refine some things in my wife.
Wow.
But over a 7.5-year period, his plan came to fruition. It gave birth to where we are today. And you want to talk about God being a jealous God? Like, he knew all that stuff was going to happen.
Yeah.
So he set us up because he was jealous for us individually. And I tell people all the time, God, your relationship with your spouse is a direct reflection of your relationship with Christ. Period.
Come on,
because if this ain't right, if this ain't right, this will never be right. Ever.
Right.
Ever in a million years.
And then also the same too. The same is still true though. Like if you're not right with your spouse,
right, you can't be right.
There's no way you can be right with God.
You can't, bro. You can't, because he's a God of order, and so he's bro, don't get me to preaching, man. I'm telling you.
I appreciate that, bro. Like I know you gotta go. I know you got things to do. Listen, we're gonna have to do another one probably, because this was really solid. This was really good, man. Before we get out, let me give you my 3 questions.
Okay.
It's the 3 questions from 1 through 44. We'll start there.
Oh, okay.
We could have transitioned. We could talk all day about.
For sure. Yes, sir.
Give me a number 1 through 44.
Well, my college number was 15.
Oh man. Okay. What are your favorite memories of your family gatherings when you were young?
It's a guy from Wind Supply.
A guy from who?
Wind Supply.
Wind Supply? Come around here real quick. This is my youngest baby. Somebody's apparently at my door. Say what's up to Mr. Glenn. Come on in here. Come on in here. This is my mini-me.
What's up? He don't remember me at all.
You remember Mr. Glenn?
No.
From the middle school?
No.
It's been several years now. It's been like at least 6 years.
With the beard.
One of my
beard, bro?
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Look at this beard. Did you invite him in?
No, all I saw you do was this.
Tell him to he's with Mr. David. Tell him to come in. Our heater went out a couple of nights ago. So my neighbor owns a heating and air conditioning company. So I think he's sending some guys over. But my fondest memory from our family gatherings, bro.
Yes.
My grandmother.
Okay.
I brought this girl home from college. So I'm in college. I was dating her at the time. My grandmother, all she needs is an audience, bro. She's like 89 right now. All she needs is an audience. I didn't know my grandmother was a stripper back in the day. She lets the whole family in front, including my girlfriend, know this at Thanksgiving dinner. So she apparently used to dance.
Awesome.
Yeah, bro, listen. She apparently used to dance with snakes. And my mom, for some reason, had this feather boa. I don't even want to know where that came from. My great-grandmother, bro, gets on top of the hearth, grabs this boa, and she's moving. And I'm like, if you don't sit your old butt down right now, if you don't quit right now. So that's one of my fondest family memories, bro.
It had to be. Listen, I think that's one of the most, that's you've topped a lot of people on that one. What's the next
Grandmother
number?
was a stripper, man.
Grandmother was a stripper. 1 through 44.
My high school number was 10.
Okay. what are your strongest memories of your dad or your grandpa?
Didn't really know my grandpa. Strongest memory of my dad, probably. I forgot about this one. When I was probably about 5, I'd never seen him. I'm walking to the corner store with my uncle. We see him. He gives me $1 bill and says, "Don't let nobody ever tell you I didn't give you nothing." And we walked off.
What? You remember that? That's incredible.
I'll never forget that.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
crazy.
never forget
That's
that.
crazy. All right, give me another number.
My oldest son is 13. My youngest son is 11. So I'll split the difference at 12.
What's something your mom or dad used to tell you growing up that later turned out to be true?
My mama. Don't ever get credit cards because you don't ever want to mess up the credit score.
I wish I would have known that one, bro.
Yeah. When I was in college, bro, you sign up for them t-shirts, they give you a t-shirt, you get a credit card. I'm like, I'm gonna get some polos, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get that. Yeah, bro, not the smartest decision. Definitely not the smartest financial decision I've ever made. So
That's what's up for sure, man.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely appreciate you, Doc.
Man. Thank you for having me on, bro.
Absolutely. And I'll last question is, how do you want your kids to remember you?
How do I want my kids to remember me? I want them to know that I worked hard to get them the things that they need and want. I want them to remember me as a loving dad, fun. I want them to remember me as a dad that just worked hard and loved his kids. I try to represent Christ to them. I don't always do that the best way, but I think I'd be satisfied. My kids can say, "Well done, my good and faithful dad."
That's what's
and
up.
I can pass away happy.
That's
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
Well, Norwood, I really appreciate the time, man.
Yes, sir, bro.
Hopefully we can do this again. I'm trying to get to a point where I do these lives and have people dialogue with us about the different things. And hopefully, this takes off. But even if it doesn't, it's been an encouragement to me.
Yeah, thank you, bro. I appreciate the honor. The pleasure was all mine. It's good to see you. It's good to talk to you. You have to tell your wife I said hello. And
sure.
God bless your kids. I'll be praying for you in your real estate venture and your sweatshirt, your apparel. It's something like this where a lot of your heart is. So, keep chasing that dream, bro. Don't ever stop dreaming. Ever stop dreaming.
Oh, I can now that you done gave me that inspiration, bro.
Yeah. Otherwise, you end up with 1,000 pair of socks. So
that's what's up.
Yeah, bro.
Appreciate you, man. You take it easy, man.
You too, bro. See you later.
Bet.
Bye.
Bye.